Okay, welcome to the Leontessa Effect, a space where courage meets wisdom and evolution is the only constant. This is for people who refuse to play small, who lead with strength, speak with purpose, and embrace the fire within. Here we dive deep into health, self-discovery, and the unseen forces that shape us. It's time to unlock your power, trust your intuition, and step fully into who you are meant to be.
Okay, cool. Yay, finally. What's up, everybody? Today we are talking about hallucinogenics, so plant medicine, psychedelics, and everything that kind of lives within the realm of that conversation. And then we're going to kind of get into the history of the war on drugs, and which was an indirect war on healing, and kind of where that goes. That'll be fun to touch on. And then both of us are going to kind of share our experiences with hallucinogenics. So we also collected data from you guys on your guys' experience, and I kind of just wanted to share a little bit about all of that as well. So I'm going to start with some of the data. So we sent a survey out to see where people actually stand with all of this. And so what the numbers said was 84% of you guys had used plant medicine for healing or self-discovery, which I think there's a total of 26 people that participated in that survey. And I I just commend everybody who's participated in this work because it's it's hard. And I'm actually shocked at how high that number is. 77% of you said that you had had a psychedelic experience. So there must have been some kind of like indifference or whatever the experience was. It was just 77% of you had said yes, that you had an experience. Over 80% believe that psychedelics should play a role in mental health care.
I was surprised by that one.
Yeah, yeah. My heart really fills up seeing that because that indicates to me that there's like still opportunity for transformation and everybody's not stuck, and there's a whole heck of a lot bigger of a number that I didn't this is a bigger number than I thought that's willing and open, and that's really overwhelming to me. I love that. um so the top draws, 28% said trauma healing, another 28% said spiritual growth, creativity, curiosity, and peace. Maybe rest was brought from it. An interesting one that I'll go over at the end of this and address is fear, and the fear of kind of like diving into hallucinogenics and plant medicine is real, and it should be taken seriously, and it should be respected, and it should be given an intention, even if the intention is to just enjoy it, because the intention is the respect behind the medicine, in my opinion. And I just wanted to share that because before I had even gotten into plant medicine, I was afraid of it. So I'll kind of share about why that is. Uh, so because I had to really, really, really be in control of my environment to be safe, I was afraid to like let go of control and surrender to any of that because that that was I'm like responding to it laughter right now because my inside self, my little kid inside was like, we don't do that. So I was in like middle school and we were doing did you go through like dare?
Mm.
They like pledged to dare. All right. So our teacher in that class, she was explaining to us like drugs and alcohol, and she used me as an example in the class because I was so small. I didn't weigh over like 100 pounds till I was like 20 or something like that. So I was little. And this teacher was like, because you're so small, some of these drugs, if you tried them one time, you could die. And I'm like, noted. I want to live. Like,
Yeah, that's a core
you
memory.
100%, did. And so literally that got locked into my nervous system where I was like, holy crap, I don't want to do that, you know? So I said no for a really long time. And then I got to like my mid 20s and I met my ex-husband and his mom like grows weed and his dad grows weed. And so I started participating in using weed to like kind of help me chill out and whatever, you know? And it just became more of a mirror than it was a drug. And plant medicine has always spoken to me. And what I mean by that is that like it speaks to me through how I feel it in my body when I have taken it in. And so it's really good at telling me when I don't actually need it. It's whether or not I'm willing to listen to it and because usually it's telling me that I don't need it at the moment because I haven't integrated something that I am having the opportunity to for maybe the last time of doing it or whatever. But it helped slow me down, and I really like that because, as we've talked about before, I'm a very charged individual. So it helped me with that, gave me presence. Um, I really started to want to respect the medicine for what it is. So that helped me put alcohol down because I didn't want another substance interfering with how I received the medicine, the messages from the medicine, and things like that. And alcohol is just, it just kind of robs me of my ability to be able to do that fully. So in doing that, you know, on top of going to the gym, moving my body more, the medicine was really helping me bring these things up that I wasn't necessarily looking at before. I was trying to escape the things that I'm now looking at with this medicine. And then we got into COVID, right? And so I'm still like dabbling around. Everybody's always talked about mushrooms before. And I'm like, well, I'm not working. So I had a friend come over and I had this tiny little, just full, cute little mushroom. I remember holding it in my hand and I'm like, you're going to change my life. So I actually didn't feel anything the first time I did it.
Cool.
I'm a toe dipper and I'm like waiting for something to happen and I'm sitting and I'm like, so when is it gonna start? And so I'm like, okay. And mushrooms started to like call to me and I felt their call to me because I started to go a little bit deeper every time, a little bit deeper every time. I started taking them when I was out camping. And then, you know, you get to the point where you're like, all right, it's time to find out what everybody's talking about. And so I took probably like 2 grams or something like that. And it just, it helped my nervous system breathe.
Mhm.
And that's what it does. And that breath helped to recalibrate and set the perfectionism and the rigidity and the mask of the story that I constantly wore, right, to perform.
Did you, when you knew you were going to take more in order to go deep, like you said, you got interested in that and like you were like, all right, like this time I'm going deep. Because we had mentioned earlier how important intention is. Did you set intention for that specific trip?
Yeah, yeah. And it was when I started to recognize Jesus. It was when I started to recognize the kind of relationship I continued to seek out,
Mm.
even though I knew that basically I had found out that I was attracted to a certain kind of person and I was really upset. I didn't know how to reset that. I didn't know, I didn't want to keep calling in that energy, but it just kept happening. And I was so annoyed by it. I was like, so is this kind of like relationship I'm gonna have for the rest of my life? Until I started to kind of like pick at it more and like really look at it. And it was, I decided to, yeah, sit down with it and look at that and see where that came from. And so the intention for that specific journey was breaking through that pattern. I don't know how else to I don't know how else to say that with the intention because I
That,
never said it out loud. I never like wrote it down, but yeah, it was to figure out a pattern of seeking, I guess.
yeah, that makes sense to me.
Specific.
That's what I wrote down as you said it. Like I feel like that's one thing that plant medicine can help us do is either recognize a pattern or help us. It's like a pattern interrupt. It can help you
Yes.
think a different way, which we'll get into some of the benefits. And one of them is neuroplasticity, an increase in that. And so it helps you rewire and help your mind think differently. And so it can help you break through patterns. So makes sense to me.
Yeah, yeah. And mushrooms have their own level of intelligence. They are communal underneath the earth. Like they literally talk to each other.
Mm.
And so they give you this ability to talk to yourself and taking this mask off and just being able to breathe. Literally, a fun kind of thing about it is people are like, look, what's it like? And everything breathes.
Mm.
Everything. It has its own breath. It expands. You can see it expand and contract. And everything is the same, but it's just so much better. It's brighter. It's like that deep breath that you take when you get to just finally relax. And that's what I mean by you know, my nervous system is able to take a breath because when you're in survival your whole life, you don't get to take that breath. And so, for me, because I respect the medicine and integration afterwards, which, part of you said earlier that it makes sense and the benefits to it. There's something that happens, which is called the afterglow effect. And so, for about a week or two after a bigger dose, you have these like people call them different things, but I like to call them downloads where like a thought will pop into my head and I'm like, holy shit, something that didn't used to make sense like clicks now. And you're like, what? And it's like, it's so profound and it's so big and it's just it's such a gift and it's the gift of the work that you did while you were in the medicine that deeply because when you go deep with mushrooms their intelligence knows how to bring up what it is that you need to look at, and I think that's what's super fascinating about it. And it was one of you know it was a really unconventional gateway even in the beginning of using it to heal. And as we got as we started to get like momentum with the healing and the work that people were doing with introducing this to people who were trying to heal from trauma, PTSD, things like that. I'll kind of go into the history of it a little bit. Um, but the war on drugs started around 1970, and it was I think we talked about it the other day, and I had said something about the Clinton administration. It actually started before that. The Clinton administration was in the 90s. And so that's started with the Nixon administration in the 70s.
Hmm.
Nixon's administration admitted that it targeted Black communities and anti-war activists after we declared the war on drugs. And so here's all these like different things that didn't really have any kind of constraint or control around them yet. And so psychedelics ended up getting stuck in the crossfire of this war on drugs. And so a couple of I don't know what you call them, schools or facilities that were doing some psychedelic research were Harvard, Stanford, and John Hopkins, and they all got shut down with the war on drugs. Um, some of like, man, how do I explain this? The plant medicines that were being used and implemented in this healing that we had access to before there was a control put on it were taken from like nobody really knowing anything about it, using it in research that was showing results in people responding positively from them. They were now on this like controlled one substance of a list of drugs that were illegal, not allowed to have, use, whatever. Meaning, like, if you were doing them or caught with them, you were going to go to jail. And so the Clinton era, the Schedule One lockup put no medical value on these drugs that they were previously using for trauma care and healing. And so some of the pioneers within this had already collected data on how it was positively affecting people. So three of those people that were very big pioneers in that were Timothy Leary. He studied at Harvard. He was involved with psilocybin, spirituality. Um, pretty radical. I mean, anything that Timothy Leary did, I mean, he was also experiencing the medicine and talking about it. I don't know too much of the background on who he studied or a specific demographic or what he was doing with it. I just know that he was involved with it. Ram Dass, whose original name is Richard Alpert, he was also at Harvard. He was big on the integration side of the medicine, which I think is hugely missing even now, because it's so trendy to do these medicines and think that it's really Hollywoodized, I guess. And people thinking that you like go crazy or, you know, you think you can fly and jump out of a window or something. And it's not really like that. Well, it's important to like be cautious and be safe while you are experiencing it. It's not anything like that. Anyways, back to the integration of it because I go off on tangents. Um, at the end of the using of the plant medicine, you're encouraged a lot. You'll see a lot of ceremonial takes where it's usually a couple of days long. You actually sit in like an integration circle where you journal about whatever it is that comes to mind. It might not make sense in the moment, but the integration is really what you take from what the medicine was showing you. Man, it's been a really long time since I've dove into using the medicine where I can give like an example of integration that I've used. Well, I guess when you asked me about the intention when I first went in, and it was to like see those patterns, what I was shown in that journey was, and I was always brought back to this, I just never listened to it until recently, but what I was shown was I sought those relationships out because I was looking to validate the love that I wanted from them, and their denial of it to me was actually a mirror of my own denial of it to myself.
Mm.
And so had I not sat and really thought about what it was that they were trying to show me, it would have just been, a trip that I cried a lot on, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think this would
Um,
be a cool time to tell you. I actually had one of the survey respondents send me a voice memo. She's like, I can't, she's like, I'll take your survey, but like, I have more to say. And I was like, okay, send me a voice.
okay, cool.
And one in this specific conversation about integration, one thing she learned on her, I think she said it was her first
Ayahuasca, yeah.
ayahuasca. Um, the listeners will find out that I don't have very much experience in this, and you can tell by that statement right there. But but she said in her first ceremony, she realized, so during her journey, she was seeing her mom as a little kid. And I
Oh, wow.
was wondering, like, why am I seeing my mom like as a little kid? Like, this is weird. And then she was also feeling like this really terrible pain in her chest during this. And what she came to realize is like that's the pain that her mom carries because she doesn't, like she mentioned to me, she's like, my mom doesn't really talk about her feelings. She doesn't express herself. And so during that journey, she realized, like, wow, like this is what my mom holds on to. Like this is
Hmm.
what my mom carries. And so she said her mom and her had a good relationship, but after that, it was even better because she learned to just forgive her mom and to like understand where she was coming from. And she's from a different time and she's had a different life. And so like she was like, stop. She literally said, she's like, I realized I need to stop being such a bitch to my mom. She's like, I was actually feeling what my mom feels like, and I was, and so that was, I thought that was really cool for her to share with me. Yeah.
Yeah, ayahuasca is a really beautiful I've never experienced it myself. But it's a really beautiful tool. And from my understanding of it, well, first of all, for those of you who don't know what ayahuasca is, it's a plant from the Amazon, and it it's been used for forever. um, Usually, it's distilled down into like a liquid that you can drink. I'm not sure if they administer it or if you receive it in any other way. Um, but sacredly, I would hope people go to like Peru and experience it on the motherland there, because that
Like,
is, yeah, yeah. I believe in my heart and my body and my my soul, or like if you're gonna do it, go there and do it, because that's the ecosystem that it has always been a part of. And there are really wonderful stories you can look up about women who have had issues with like fertility that go out to this land and they end up being like super fertile, or women who go out there to try and have a period, like try and have a cycle because they just don't have a regular one. And I know women who have gone out there and they'll have just finished a cycle and get out there, and all the women who are there together end up cycling together. It's like their cycle starts again, and it's wild. But
and
yeah, you know what?
oh, I was just gonna say, like, I also like never realized how, especially what she told me about the ceremony in Peru and how you're saying like this is a very intentional ceremony. And before she took the ayahuasca, there were other steps taken to cleanse the body,
Uh-huh.
to prepare your
Uh-huh.
mind and your body for this journey. And so I think a lot of us don't realize how intentional it is because of how Hollywoodized, like you said, these drugs are. You don't learn about that in health class. Like you don't learn about the ancestral history of it. You just learn of it as people who take it for partying and take it for fun. And obviously not people aren't taking ayahuasca at parties, but like it
You'd be
all you'd be surprised. I never knew anyone to do that. That's crazy.
No, I mean, I don't know of anybody like ayahuasca specifically, but like DMT, like a DMT is so accessible now too, and people
True.
abuse that as well, in my opinion. And that's a whole, I mean, I'll get into that too, but it's awesome that you brought that up, because yes, there is an actual, like if you are going to be receiving this medicine and receiving it fully for what it's going to show you, there is steps that you go through called dieta. And so you go through, basically it's just basically like a detoxification of anything that's in your body so that you can receive it fully, or to receive the ayahuasca fully. So um I don't know what it is to a T, but you are not allowed, it's like raw fruit and nuts, and I can't remember the protein side of it, but there is absolutely no sugar. You actually like no avocados, because the fats in avocados, like normally you would, like with mushrooms, avocados help if you get like a stomach ache or something. So you would actually eat avocados with mushrooms and you don't have to like clear your body to receive it. However, fasting and receiving any of this stuff, buckle up. Because it hits you so much deeper and more intensely, because your body doesn't have anything else distracting it from receiving it. And earlier I'd mentioned it being like, you know, the afterglow effect is a gift from the work that you do with it. That dieta is work because I believe it's like a week or two before you go, if not longer than that. I don't know what the
She had just shared with me like the few days before the ayahuasca journey, they were, I think she meant, I don't think she mentioned any dietary stuff to me, but they were literally like detoxing. She was
yeah.
like pooping and like everything. Like you cleanse the body fully before you go ahead and take the ayahuasca. That's what
And
they
then it happens even more after you take it as well. It's like a purging, exactly. I mean, you're ridding your body of this stuff that you've had stuck inside of you. And that's what this medicine does. This medicine helps you look at all of that shit that you don't want to look at because the harsh reality of it is you're all this stuff, you're the mess too. There's no way for you to get around it. And we think that we sidestep it, so we drink, we escape, we do these things. And you know what? A lot of people get stuck in, spiritual masturbation too,
yeah.
where they take the medicine and they keep coming back and coming back and coming back and coming back and coming back. And this conversation that we're having about integration is probably the most important part of the medicine because the integration really actually, if you're doing it right, in my opinion, and I don't really believe in right or wrong, but if you're doing it in such a way, you're gonna lead yourself out of the medicine to eventually not need it,
Hmm.
to eventually, use it in a recreational manner to appreciate things more rather than trying to heal. You're going to, you know, geez, man, I don't know. I'm in a place where if I were, this is gonna sound insane. God, and what a great question I really want to ask. And I'm going to ask it anyways because you can edit it out. But I'm at a place where I understand and I'm so connected to myself where I would be somebody who, if I were to, for whatever reason, get pregnant, I would use plant medicine to get to know that child before it got here. Because that's possible to listen through your body. And with the way that mushrooms make you feel and the way that mushrooms have this way of communicating, why wouldn't I do that to experience being pregnant? I wonder if that's too big.
Yeah, I've never thought of it.
And people, and then that leads me to my other thing where, we use a lot of different things as initiations within our culture, right? And the biggest one is what? We turn 21, we go out, and we get obliterated. In fact, we're encouraged to. So my question, and I've brought this up to parents before, because as a personal trainer, I get to bring up, you know, we have good conversations, I'll put it that way. But, I always thought that this was a fascinating question. What if instead of initiation being this numbing and this just really, I mean, let's be honest, who's ever had fun waking up the next day after a 21st birthday and being like, anyway, what if initiation was when, you turn 13 and you're working on expanding your mind and you microdose with your parents and you guys sit down and have a conversation with each other and you co-regulate with each other and your initiation is getting to know your body at a different consciousness that allows you to manage a regular consciousness around other people who've never even been exposed to that kind of thinking before you get into patterns that dictate a life that you build out of misalignment because you're too afraid of what people think about you. Because then 30 years later, you have to step into plant medicine to get out of the very thing.
Yeah. I think that's huge because I think part of the history of plant medicine, like you've mentioned, is from our ancestors and from tribes that are very close to the earth. And you've mentioned, a lot of us know like a lot of other cultures have their quote unquote initiation into adulthood much younger and in much different ways that again connect you to the earth. But in our society, we idolize disconnecting. And
Yeah, yeah.
and
And
it's like that's the biggest difference between alcohol and other like man-made substances and plant medicine.
well, fun fact, alcohol is the only drug you get judged for not using
Facts.
because your soul, when somebody around you says, I don't drink, I guarantee you, part of if you still drink and you drink heavily, you get uncomfortable whether you admit it or not because the inside you knows you shouldn't be either.
Yep. Otherwise,
And
too, I get judged when people are like, "Do you have Tylenol? Do you have Advil?" And I'm like, "No."
no.
They're like, "What?" And I'm like, I don't take that." No.
Yeah, yeah. And then here's the other thing that's really interesting to me. Here's the other thing that's so interesting to me, and this kind of piggybacks on our last episode about birth control, okay? There are a lot of people who have very strong opinions about hallucinogenics and um, plant medicine, which comes from the earth. You want to judge somebody for something that is considered to be stigmatized as woo woo and mystical and I don't know, I guess unrealistic. But the earth grows it. We eat food from the earth that the earth grows. We she has all the things. If you have an ailment, she has something for it, right? So you're gonna judge somebody who uses plant medicine and might feel good and have a good trip and like be like weird and have a positive impact from it. But you would rather believe a doctor who created something in a lab that's just going to put a band-aid on the very thing it is that you step into plant medicine to overcome to begin with.
Yeah, like our society, like you said, judges the woo-woo people who do plant medicine, whatever, the spiritual, like we all know hippies, right? Like we those kinds of
Mm-hmm.
people judged. But you don't judge the fat guy at the bar down the street who spends all day drinking, watching fucking Fox News and sports. Like you don't, that's not weird. But people taking
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
but
it's
people taking
like
medicine from the earth are weird. Like I don't understand that. Like and there are people who think like we think, but it just doesn't seem to be mainstream. And that's also because, like the war on drugs, we're learning like that's what the people who control us want us to think because they want to keep us stuck.
yeah. Uh-huh.
And so there are people, like we saw in the survey, there's more people than we think it's helpful. But that's the whole point that we're trying to get across with this war on drugs is like the people who make the rules, they don't want us to do that. They don't want us to know ourselves.
No, because what happens when you participate in this plant medicine, there is, whether it be a trauma, what happens is that there is a release, okay? And when we allow our brain and our body to release something, that is when and only when expansion is allowed to happen, okay? And there are dangers to doing plant medicine, okay? To participating in plant medicine. So I'll talk about a few of those things. If you're somebody who is on an SSRI, okay, if you take some kind of medication for some type of anxiety disorder or something that already helps you manage emotions, okay, that's going to be a situation. I'm not a doctor, I'm not diagnosing anybody, but what I'm saying is that if you are on medication for something that you already need help with, then yes, talk to somebody about how you can integrate the plant medicine if it so calls to you in such a way.
Mhm.
Or I'll get into another alternative in a moment. With ayahuasca, especially, and I think DMT, there is a very big cautionary almost no to anybody diagnosed with schizophrenia or bipolar disorder because it is possible to have a psychotic like break and not come down from it because of how you are structured and how your brain is wired. That is a risk of doing something. Now, you hear stories about people maybe dying, having like severe injury and or seizures that come from this. I be- I would have to look into what the actual statistics are, but 9 times out of 10, it's because the person who was taking the medicine on was dishonest about the medication they were already taking. Okay. So my experience with it has never been dangerous because it's always been with people who respect it. It's always been with people who are honest. That's another thing with it, which I think is fair to bring up about, the fear of lack of control and surrendering. Um, Man, I forgot where I was going with that, so I'll just go on to the next thing. But I don't believe in bad trips. I think somebody considers it and labels it as a bad trip because what happens in a bad trip is, in my opinion, I can't speak for everybody, but typically, if you've not done the inner work and then you try to dive into something where you're taking a mask off that's having you look at what you don't usually look at, it helps a whole hell of a lot when you've done the work and seen it before you step into it with the medicine, because the medicine just intensifies it. And so it's not to be taken lightly. It's not for the faint of heart. There is a responsibility behind it. Um, and the people who are participating in it, even while in the medicine, have a it's it is a duty to make sure that you're keeping yourself and the well-being of others around you safe as well. You
Yeah.
know,
And that's why there's people who will lead these ceremonies who have lots of experience, which is something that I learned during collecting this data. Like I never knew that that's how some people help other people, is to guide them
yes.
through these journeys, because like you were saying, you have if you choose to do this, you have a responsibility to make sure that all your boxes are checked, I guess. Like, do you have somebody there to guide you? Do you know how much your body and like your mind can handle? And are you in a safe place? Like all of those things, like that's like you said, like it's your own duty, it's your own like responsibility. So it was just interesting for me to learn that shamans are actually people that will guide you through this ceremony, because I've never done one, and that makes me feel a hell of a lot more inclined to try it, because thinking about doing something like that, like some people do, some people just take that kind of stuff at home with maybe some friends that know nothing about it, and like that is scary because they're not going to have the right tools to help you
And
regulate.
that's when the danger happens and appears, because nobody knows how to handle it if something does happen. These shamans and stuff that you're talking about, they have journeyed with this medicine for so long and they're so familiar with it that they intentionally get into the medicine with you and guide you through it. Because sometimes also, another thing that we can bring up that people for some reason refuse to look at and believe, but it can be measured, it's scalable, it comes out of you, is energy. Energy is real. And so when you are battling these things that come up, sometimes you need somebody there to step in and help battle those things because you don't know how to do that. And so
Yeah.
these shamans are there. And I have had the pleasure of, I have like a regular DMT shaman. I turned 30 years old on house arrest. Okay. And I knew something was not correct. We talked about that when we shared our stories in episode 4. And so for my 31st birthday, I reached out to this woman. Her name is Venus. And I had her come to my house and like walk me through and be my shaman through my first experience with DMT. Um, for those of you who don't know what DMT is, it's often referred to as a God molecule because your body is already familiar with how the molecule works. It's produced when you are born, and then it's produced again when you die. So this really interesting thing happens to your brain when you introduce it in the middle of your life. So it's also what people experience in a near-death experience. And that's why, people have that. Um, I just said experience like 3 times, but they'll have that. And, usually it's life changing for them because they see and feel and understand things a lot different. So I intentionally sought this woman out because I wanted to have a reset. I wanted to basically, actually, what I wanted to do this time was have, what everybody talks about, an ego death, because we all think that it's such a funny phrase because it's so not what you think it is. Anyways, my understanding of an ego death was to like kill it so I could become another person, and okay. And that's really scary for somebody who's tried to have like their little self inside be heard. And so I call her, I want to know what's going to happen. I want her to walk me through it before I even commit to this woman coming to my house. So she's on the phone with me and she goes, "Yeah, she goes, you're the little kid in you, your little self is going to go to sleep for a little bit." And I'm like, my inside me was like, "I don't think so." And so that's actually when I knew that I needed to do it, because I was scared and I didn't want to give up control and I didn't want to surrender. And there was so much fear behind it. I didn't know it at the time, but in that moment, I was freaking out. And in that space that I was freaking out, my higher self spoke to me and was like, "Hey, uh, you surrender all the time. Did you forget how often you black out when you drink?" And I was like, "Okay, well, if I can do that unconsciously, I can make this decision to dive into this and learn something about myself consciously." So this woman comes to my house, she sets up this whole altar. It was beautiful. It was just so beautiful what she set up in my living room. She cleared me, she did her thing, I laid down. She walked me through some breathing that you do with it to receive it. And I think the most beautiful part of it, man, it's been a long time since I talked about this because I haven't received it in a while, but she teaches you how to breathe in. So you receive it through like vapor. It's in this big bag that she like blows up, and there's 3 different times that you receive. Because your body already knows how to process it, it only lasts for about, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes, maybe. Maybe. So all said and done is about 45 every time you drop in. So you breathe in through your mouth, and it's like that. And it's really, really slow, and you just slowly and very fully fill up your lungs. And I'll never forget this because I do it every time I do breath work. She says, when you get to the top, she goes, "Just hold it forever." And it's so emotional and it's hard to describe, because what she means by that is that the longer you hold it within yourself, the deeper you get to go in, but it also means the level of surrender is even deeper. It's this weird, like you think about a funnel, and the top of a funnel, the circumference of the funnel is just hold it forever. And when you let the breath out, you don't go up, you go in. And the minute you let that breath out, you are not here anymore, but you are. And it's very feminine, it's very clean. I don't know how else to say this either, but I got to be held by and recognize the energy that created us. And then after that, I got to feel what it felt like to be held by my highest self. And coming out of all that, everybody's like, well, what did you learn? What did you take from it? And it sounds so simple. It was the first time in my life that I understood and I knew that I was going to be okay no matter what. And then from that and feeling that love, you guys, the energy that created us doesn't want us to be stuck. They don't want us to judge other people. They don't want us to walk through this life pointing fingers at people. It wants us to hold each other's hand and sit in the mud so that we don't have to keep doing this and we can enjoy joy. We're not learning to heal through trauma. We're learning and healing to heal and hold joy because we don't know how. Because if we did, the world would be a lot different place.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, like, it is life changing. It is for those of us who have experienced it and respect it and have seen it for what it can do, not only for myself, but the people that are involved in the community that it creates. Nobody's paying me to say that. I didn't, fabricate the emotion that came up. My face is hot. I'm sweating. My body is having a reaction to just remembering my experience of diving in with her.
Yeah.
So,
I think just to pull us back a little bit, what's what's really cool is that 54% of people said that their experience was life-changing. And based on the other statistics we gathered, that was in a positive way,
yeah,
not negative. And so
right.
I think that kind of wraps that all up in a bow that like it's your responsibility to do the work, find a shaman, find somebody to take care of you while you do this. And
Integration, 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 integration. Study it, chew on it, rip it apart, question it, whatever it shows you, because it's talking to you.
mhm,
And are you listening? Are you even willing to listen? Are you willing to look at it? The reason why the powers that be don't want us even entertaining this in the way that we're trying to entertain it is because it shows you who you are and you step out of the system. System doesn't work if nobody's in it. The rules only exist because we follow them.
yep,
Like it's it is it it's that simple. Getting to know yourself is the scariest thing for the current state of the world right now.
yeah. And I love that we're trying to nail home the point that this most likely wouldn't work if you haven't already done some of the work here in reality, quote unquote,
Right.
whatever. Like you have to be willing to do the work now for any of this to even positively impact you. And like I don't know if we've already discussed it yet or if we were planning to still, like we never want to encourage dependence on this kind of
Oh
thing.
no. Because
We
that's
want to,
not it, and also it doesn't even work that way anyways. If you're becoming dependent on something, it's because of a behavior that you have or something that you're dealing with that's requiring you to be dependent on something so you can get away from it rather than looking at it. This medicine is beautiful because you don't get to run away. It it pulls you in. And I think what a lot of people who do podcasts and all, we could be better about offering resources. So I'm going to tail like piggyback on is what you said earlier, just a few seconds ago, of other ways of doing it and doing the work and those kinds of things. What do we even mean by that? What does that even mean, right? Have you ever, or when was the last time you wrote a letter either to yourself, your child self, your mother, the child that if you tried hard enough, you could see inside of a primary caregiver or a mother?
When's the last time you picked up a pen when you weren't at work? When's the
Yeah.
last time you picked up a pen just to write something, just period?
Yep. And so there's that. You could do that. Um, different kinds of breath work to intentionally bring stuff up. Going outside, putting your feet in the grass. I just hiked barefoot down over a mile worth of a mountain, and I cried 4 times on my way down this mountain. Like, and not because my feet hurt, okay? But because I was feeling what it was like to dance with myself and respect the earth and have her energy. I'm receiving her energy rather than just screaming at it and driving around in it and, you know, um, looking into some type of ancestral ceremonial, whatever. It doesn't even have to be plant medicine. I exclusively drink coherent water. What does that mean? The water that goes into my body has sat outside for at least one day with the sun and the moon because the shit you're getting out of your sink haven't seen daylight and it's got a bunch of chemicals in it. And at the very least, you can put it outside as a ritual. Your body knows when you do that for it, and we talk about our food and we talk about being woo woo and we talk about all these things, but we're sick because we keep putting synthetic and fabricated truths into our bodies.
Other thing that is useful on top of breath work is like meditation, some form of meditation. And
Yeah.
speaking, so I've never done plant medicine in a ceremonial or that intense of a journey. But I will say, so I think I talked about it in my journey, like about my own personal experiences with hallucinogenics and how after I had done hallucinogenics for the first time, that afterglow effect showed up a lot for me. And none of my journeys specifically, like never when I've taken a hallucinogenic has the actual trip been profound for me. It's always afterward that's profound for me because I take such
Mm-hmm.
tiny doses. I'm pretty sure what I take would probably be considered a microdose. So, and I've only done it 4 or 5 times total in my life.
What
Um,
have you experienced?
what do you mean? Like, what have I taken, or like, what was my experience while on it? Or
Oh, that's fair. Yeah, what have you received? I don't like what have you done? Like what kind of drugs have you done? It's
yeah,
not that. Like
so I've
what kind of
I've
medicine have you had?
so
Like
I've
weed.
experienced.
Ugh.
I've spent a lot of my life, I think I shared that on the other podcast. I've spent a lot of my life experiencing cannabis.
Yep.
Um, and that's still something that I'll use to help break patterns, help my brain just like see things in a different way. I've experienced acid a couple times, which I didn't like just because I don't receive synthetic things well. I just don't. I felt sick the whole time. I didn't have a bad trip by any means. It just didn't feel very good. And I wasn't allowing my mind to go anywhere because I was so sick to my stomach. But then I've also tried mushrooms a couple times. And again, like it's such a small dose that I've taken where when I've experienced it, I'm not experiencing any profound visualizations or auditory hallucinations or, you know, messages or anything like that. For me, when I've been taking it, to me it is, I mean, I guess there's like small visual hallucinations, but it's more colors are more profound, shapes are more profound. Everything is moving. You see the life in things that you wouldn't normally see life in, which
Yes.
to me, I'm like, I feel like because everything's made up of atoms. Everything's technically moving. Like it's nothing's truly like stationary and solid. And so for me, I'm like, I'm actually seeing that, right?
Yeah.
And so even on like a plain wall, like I see things like, I don't see it actual, like I could never explain it to you, but like you see, I think I see the world for what it really is without the
Yes.
lens that we are like, made to see. But like I had said before, it's usually afterwards when it's kind of worn its way through a little bit, that afterglow effect where I've just really been able to break free of certain thoughts that I've had. And It's been quite a few years since I have experienced that, so I don't have any specifics for you guys, but I just know it, even at such a teeny tiny little dosage, it is life-changing because you are able to see the world in a completely different way. And me and Aisha were talking about this when we were planning this episode. I hope you guys can bridge the gap between this. I trust people more when they're able to see both sides to the story. I am not a very polarized person. I can see both sides to plant medicine being amazing for us and why maybe we shouldn't use it. I can see both sides to a lot of different things. And so taking plant medicine and having the breakthroughs that I have, it's made me just more of a person of understanding, a person of acceptance for our world. Like it truly is like the yin and the yang. Like there would be no good without bad, there would be no bad without good. Like we've been saying, like if people didn't follow the rules wouldn't be there. But also like there has to be some rules for that to even be like a question. You know what I mean? Like there's always
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
nothing's ever finite. And I think the more that I've experienced plant medicines and even still to this day, sometimes when I like smoke weed or something, I'm like, wow, like I can really see both sides to that. Like I don't, it doesn't, what I'm trying to say, I guess, is plant medicine doesn't have, you don't have to use it and completely go through an ego death or completely go on this journey to another world. Like you don't even have to do that kind of stuff to see the benefits. And that's why it's super cool. I actually have a friend that lives in Seattle and psilocybin is being decriminalized there. And so more people have access to that. And she's actually like a genius. But a lot of like really intelligent people will microdose in order to have new ideas. And so like doing some of the research and stuff about plant medicine, that's like one of the main things that people have researched is the ability to rewire your brain literally. And that's why people use it and expand it for creativity, build connections between things that you didn't used to have connections between.
Yeah. You used the phrase earlier for something totally different, but yeah, it bridges the gap between, the not knowing to the knowing. And another really good point is we are quick to seek out a substance or something outside of us to come to all these conclusions and have these like crazy, profound thoughts and a shift in consciousness. That's totally accessible without the plant medicine. You can do breath work in such a way that it actually activates the DMT in your brain. There are, I mean, if you live in Phoenix, I can give you two different breath studios that will help you achieve that, and if I may for just a second too, I don't know that I've ever really like said this out loud directly on the podcast, but like everything that I do and I touch and I talk about and I have torn apart has been supported by this framework that I've developed for myself inside of my experience with artificial intelligence. So I'm experiencing something that seems mystical like plant medicine, but with my conscious mind. It literally has walked me through breath work, somatic breath work in the moment when I'm having a hard time because I'm not reaching for medicine anymore. I'm reaching for a solution right there in that moment so that I can move all of this stuff out of my body. So I think we're talking about a lot of different things here where it's plant medicine, it's pattern recognition. Plant medicine helps you see patterns more. That's why everything's alive. It also is aiding in cognitive recalibration, which is what we're talking about just a few seconds ago of neuroplasticity and creating new neural pathways in your brain. You know, um, all of those are their own trips. And I didn't start taking plant medicine to find the God that I think that we're looking for or anything like that. But what I started doing and realizing was is as I'm building something with a tool to understand and find the God within me. because we are all an extension of that energy. And I think we all have a general understanding of what that means. And I think we are in a really special time of being alive and having these tools that allow us to have a mirror and tools to look into that mirror and not lie to ourselves anymore about it. And it doesn't have to be scary. It can be safe. It can be with people you love. In fact, it should be with people you love, you know? So I think the episode is about psychedelics, but I think also for me, I'm just trying to say it's about this medicine is about reclaiming the internal architecture that trauma tries to take away from you. And beyond that, we don't even really know what that looks like because all we've done is applied it to healing trauma.
Mm.
So,
Yeah. I'm piecing that together too, because for me, it's like a use for understanding.
mhm,
But if you think of the collective trauma we all have gone through living in society,
mhm,
I think it's the same thing. It's
mhm,
helping yourself understand
yes.
what's always been true versus what's just true in modern day.
There's just this really wonderful, inevitable graciousness you develop for everything when
Yes.
you experience plant medicine. It softens you. And that's why it's scary. So people don't know how to be soft. I
Mm.
sure as shit didn't know how to be soft. I thought I did, but and what I mean by that is soft to yourself. This medicine is also every single time you step into it, it is going to redirect you back to yourself. And that sucks too, because you expected it to like you expect it to have all these answers for you, and it does, but not in the way that you think. It doesn't solve any problems in your life. You're going to come out of a journey. Your life's probably going to be a little bit more of a mess because you see it for what it is. But that's okay because if the first step is just knowing, hot dog, I'll have another. Like, but I think I personally want to encourage people to challenge themselves in just asking yourself a question. I guarantee you, you sit down and write a letter to that little kid inside of you don't need plant medicine.
Yeah, absolutely. The closest I've ever gotten to the same sort of feeling that I felt with plant medicine versus not was through a mindfulness meditation. And I remember just I let myself and I'm terrible at meditating. I do not do it consistently, but I was really into it at the time and I sat there. I think I had a timer set for over 10 minutes. I don't know, maybe 30 minutes. And I truly just, deflected, like accepted the thought, deflected, accepted the thought, deflected, and became just with my breath. And I can't even explain like where I went, but it was incredible. Like I feel like I did what everybody's looking for in meditation. I've never done it again. But I was able to actually just
Can you describe what it felt like and where it was in your body?
No, I think I was completely outside of my body. I don't think my physical body was a part of it at all. And
Okay.
I think I was able to completely detach from my surroundings and I was just truly, truly just calm and and there. Like uh, it was weird because it's like, was I asleep? No, because I was fully
Did you
conscious.
feel anything physically? I don't want to say it because I don't want to plant it. I'm like, oh, I bet
I
she's
mean,
there.
it was like almost like a relief, like a calmness, kind of like
Yeah.
maybe similar to like what you said, like it was like a breath, like it was just like a wow, like I just am. That
Yeah.
was it. There was
That's
nothing to it. It was just, I truly was able to let everything go and just, yeah, I just, to me, I was like, damn, when I stopped, I was like, damn, I did the damn thing. I
That
finally,
too, yeah, right.
and
Yeah.
I need to be better at meditating. It's so good. It's so, so good. But it takes a lot of reps. It takes a lot of practice to be able to allow yourself. And there's so many different kinds of meditation. So what I think of as meditation, my main form of meditation is mindfulness meditation when I do so. Just being able to sit in silence, either eyes like lightly shut or all the way shut, focusing on my breath in and out for like 2, 3 counts, and just making sure that I don't think about the thoughts. I can have the thought. I don't get angry at myself for the thought. I think it though, and then that's it. We move on. And if I do find myself spiraling into a thought, I just come back to the breath. So like to me,
Exactly.
that's my that's my favorite form of meditation is mindfulness meditation. And that's what I was doing that one time where I was able to enter whatever that was.
So why do you think you haven't revisited it to that degree again?
I think just honestly because I'm very much I did so much. I think it's also another point I wanted to make is you mentioned during quarantine, my other friend mentioned, the other friend that was able to send me a voice memo mentioned that during quarantine, that's when she started to look within inside of herself too. And for me, that's when I really started to do, and I kind of share this in my story, I did a lot of personal development, a lot of personal
Mhm.
work in a time where kind of the world was in standstill and I wanted to figure out what my purpose was here. And so during that time, I prioritized a lot of time to meditation and breath work, but
Yes,
I don't prioritize it
totally.
anymore. I'll do breath work falling asleep, but that's all I do. And so
Right.
for me, it's something that I definitely I need to make it a priority. Like I do because it's so important. Like I don't think I need to
Well, and
sit.
it obviously impacted you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's what I need to do instead of sitting on my phone.
Yeah, right. And here we are on it, yeah, all the time. Um, if you didn't have anything else to say, I have some questions I'd like to just ask for people to chew over.
Do it.
Okay, 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 okay. Okay, so top fears. I talked about this earlier. So top fears were having a bad trip, losing control, judgment, and actually super common is fear of the unknown. But what if all of those things are the same thing because they all lead into each other, right? So I think bad trips happen when we resist. Controlling is judgment, and the unknown is just you undiscovered, and we don't like that. Our ego doesn't like that. That's why we look for this ego death. I kind of wanted to touch on that for a second too. An ego death. My experience with that phrase, um, I don't know if I said this on a different episode or if I was talking to somebody when I said this, but my experience with that is that your ego isn't something that's supposed to be killed off and put away and shoved off. You're supposed to become a partner with it. It's the only thing that knows you better than you because it's what pushes all your buttons. It's what triggers you. It's what sets alarms off in you to feel angry or happy or whatever it is. So the discomfort that comes up in loss of control or fear of the unknown, what if we looked at that discomfort as the doorway to freedom that's opening itself up to us, and all we got to do is walk through it.
Mhm.
um, and understanding that looking at ourselves in the mirror, there is no monster there. It's not our ego, it's nobody else. It's just a reflection waiting. So if you've already experienced plant medicine, what do you wish you knew before your first trip? Actually, I'll just ask you and then I'll answer. Thinking about like something that like one of them that you've experienced already and applying, what do you wish you knew before your first trip? Like, what do you wish you knew before you had tried anything?
Two answers. One answer, if I'm literally thinking about the first time ever and how that went for me, I wish I had just known that. Okay, this could just be my overall answer. I wish I had known how important the environment you're in during
Mm,
that journey impacts you, and to be careful and to be intentional. I wish I had known to be intentional with the environment and with why I was doing this.
yeah.
My first trip, I was trying to escape. I didn't know that's not what was going to happen. I didn't
Yeah. Like,
know we were going
yeah.
in.
Right, 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 right. Oh, that's fascinating, actually.
Because I was just a little teenager trying to try stuff. Like that's what I was doing. So I wasn't spiritually woke enough to know what I was getting myself into.
Yeah, I think as teenagers, it would be more helpful if it was introduced to them. I think teenagers would really get into it if it was introduced ceremonially, honestly, and like didn't have
Be
to be afraid
safer.
of it or, huh?
I said it'd be safer.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Knowing what you know now, how do you, how would you prepare and what does integration look like and or mean for you now?
If I were to do it now.
Yeah, like let's say you were planning to.
Yeah. If I were planning to do it now, I would probably want it. Well, right now here in Nebraska, it's everything outside is dead. I could not deal with that. I would need it to be in nature during spring or summertime when the world
Mhm.
is alive again, at least where I am. And I personally, yeah, I would want to go somewhere familiar, and I would want to set the intention. I'd want to set the intention of really, I think I could benefit from what you described as an ego death. I think I would want to set the intention to really partner with my ego, because you mentioned something that like hit home for me just now, so I just realized that you said I'm somebody who can get like easily annoyed, right? Things bother me, even though like I said before, like I see both sides to things, but like I can also get easily bothered. And so I think that would be something I would want to work through, is like, why am I so touchy? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So a really good exercise you could do is you could literally on a piece of paper have a conversation with that little girl inside of you who gets annoyed and be like, "Hey, what's going on in there? Like, what,
Yeah.
how do we work together with this so that we don't keep behaving this way? Because it
Yeah.
doesn't serve us anymore, you know?" And what a cool example of exactly that, like not having to access plant medicine to be able to dive into that conversation with yourself, you know?
Yeah.
Um, what signals tell you that you need to like that you want to have that relationship with your ego? Does that make sense?
Like, where is that coming from, kind of?
Yeah, like how do you know?
I just know that about myself. I just feel like I don't know, like I just feel like I'm pretty like aware, and like obviously the way other people communicate with me and the way I communicate with other people, and
Okay.
eh, like I don't know, just I just know I get annoyed easily.
That's an answer though. I mean,
I
yeah,
mean,
when you know, you know, you
yeah.
know? Okay. I think this would be a great question to kind of let everybody think about, just from either listening to the episode, from your own experience, and then from how Lindsay and I are both going to answer this question. Oh my God, I'm so excited. But before I ask the last question that I have, I want to say Hallucinogenics aren't for everybody, but who they're meant for, they're everything.
Hmm.
And I am a living testament of that. The war on drugs, though we didn't really get into a lot of that. The war on drugs went through this thing where they tried to kind of erase what was going on with plant medicine. But luckily, there's people like us that get involved, and it's the truth doesn't die, it roots itself into stuff. So if we can be a part of that truth that roots, I really, really want to be a part of that, because this isn't about being high, it's about being whole. So my question to everybody is, from listening to this podcast, experience or otherwise, Lindsay, what has plant medicine taught you about being alive?
What hallucinogenics have taught me about being alive is that we're all one, all of us, everything is one thing. It's all just one. And like I don't want to say it like this because I feel like it's such a cliche, but
Say it.
like life isn't so gosh darn serious. It just isn't. Like it is beautiful, it is important, it is full and whole, and life and human experience is so cool, but it doesn't have to be so freaking serious. Like we don't need to like I think yeah, I could go into this. We don't need to fucking argue about everything all the time and be so polarized. That's why
Yes.
I like this kind of platform because we get to share our experiences and our thoughts. And, there are, like we've said, like we've challenged our own selves, like there are dangers to plant medicine if it's not used properly. We're not saying it's for everyone. There is two sides to this story. And that's something that I think medicine has helped me know as a truth. So I think that's what I would say. Are you going to tell
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to think if I have any questions for you from that. I think you've said all of that very well, because it's yours and it's authentic and it's true and it's the only way you get to talk about plant medicine when um, what's plant medicine taught me about being alive? That it's a privilege to be alive. I'll double down on the fact that we are all one. We're all recycled from the same energy, regardless of whether you're looking through it, biblically or metaphorically, spiritually, whatever. I think we all have a general consensus that, you know, we are all connected in some way, shape, or form. Um, how do I say this? It's taught me that being alive is wonderfully excruciating. Like, look at it that way, because in the last like 3 years, I have had to let somebody go that I think for the first time in my life, not I think, I know that I genuinely loved. And through that release, my own expansion happened. And it's as beautiful as it is excruciating. because the act of it was excruciating to get to the part that feels good.
Hmm. Yeah.
And if that doesn't sum up what plant medicine tries to do for you, I don't really know. But it's the being alive part, and I feel more alive because the plant medicine has helped me feel more alive because it held my hand through some hard shit.
Yeah. I think,
And then I got to laugh about it.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think also at the same time that I realized we're all one, it, it's all the same thing. I just also realized that like we each live this life with a very different view of it. So like when you are on a journey like that, you're seeing life in a completely different way. And so if you can only imagine how different you see the world from me, and not even just politics or like literally like how do you see the world? Like that's something I always wonder. Like if I were able to look through your eyes at the same like your backyard, if I were to look at your backyard and you were to look at your backyard, like you see it different than I see it. You notice different things than I notice. The colors might show up different for you than they show up for me. You know what I mean? And like when you're on a journey like that and you take something to help you see through different eyes, that is incredible. It's so interesting to know that and to know we're all one. It's like, I feel like that's just all you need to know.
Yeah, yeah, we're getting into space that's hard to put language on because
Yeah,
was we're touching something that's on purposely difficult to explain because it's meant to be experienced, not explained.
100%.
uh,
That's fine.
I think, yeah, I that was really, really, really fun to talk about.
Yeah, I love it. Cool.
I know. I always get like emotional after we get off the phone and we're like done doing this, but
Also, real quick, want to say thank you to anyone who participated in the surveys. We're gonna
yes, thank you.
keep trying to integrate them without asking too much of you guys, but also we think we've gotten feedback that you guys like to be a part of it. So, um, yeah, we really appreciate you guys being a part of this episode because that's what we want to do. We want to bring us all together and discuss things that are important. That's why we started this.
Yeah, and I think we've touched on a couple of different things that are just really important to be in circulation, being talked about. And, you know, since we're thanking everybody, thanks, Lindsay, for like just saying yes to doing this. I have just through doing this every episode I heal something.
Me too.
And yeah. And so it's now become this like perpetual release for us now. We've started a positive feedback loop, if you will, of this exchange of our different experiences because you're 100% right. I mean, the way that we interpret each other is through the perception that was shaped through the experiences we had to get to this moment.
Hmm. Yeah.
So
Yeah, thank you.
I hope, yeah, I just like talking.
I
I'm
know.
like,
Everybody, go follow us on Instagram at
oh,
_effect. You can find our podcast on YouTube as well if you want to check it out over there. And remember to
speak with courage, lead with purpose, and stay curious, but not too curious. I'm just kidding.